The easiest way to get this concept is to put in another track. And now we're going to show students how to place multiple sounds on multiple tracks in EarSketch. And again, this is the point we might go back to the slides, or it's up to you. You could actually just continue to live code. It's really up to you. For this time around, let's just use this slide as a way to remind ourselves where we are in the agenda. And let's flip back to EarSketch and say, okay, I'm going to have all of you keep on coding with me. And of course, you encourage students to raise their hands throughout the class. And we're going to hold this frame down a little bit so we can see when we put the next track. And so right below fitMedia here, we're going to say, okay, we're going to say sound equals. Now we're going to change the value of the sound variable. We're going to change the value. That's one of the reasons we call it variables, is it can change. So let's say we want to put in the vocals over here that we had earlier. We'll add those, and those will be our sound, our second sound. We're going to hit this blue paste to editor button. And again, if we see that green play button, we know we got the correct sound that we want. We put it in properly. On this next line, we'll have track equals 2. We're updating the value of the track variable. On the next line, we'll type in start equals 5. And then we'll type in fitMedia, same instructions, sound, track, start, end. And hit the run button. Notice you can zoom out here in EarSketch by clicking that minus sign. Now we can see everything in front of us. So now we have two sounds playing side by side. Let's hear what this sounds like first. Let's turn off the metronome. It's starting to sound a little bit like something you might hear on the radio. Okay, so what do we have here? We've got two sounds playing side by side on two different tracks. We have track 1, track 2. This track starts on 1. On track 2, it starts on 5. Why? Because we updated start to equal 5, and they both end on 20. Why do they both end on 20? And then we'll have a pause. We'll have one of the students say, well, it's because you said n equals 20 up here. Right. And then we didn't update it. And this is the power of variables. You can write it once, and unless you change the value, you can refer to end all over your script and update it in one place. So let's say maybe I want everything to end on 16 instead of 20. Well, then I can just update it once, hit the run button, and automatically both end at 16. And imagine writing not just 16 lines of code, but 16,000 lines of code. And maybe you had this reference to the number 20 all over the place that all refer to the end. Then you want to change that once. For every instance that you had the number 20, you have to go through your code and look for number 20 and replace it. And that can be really painful. Instead, just have a variable and then you update once, and that, unless you change it, every reference to end, every time we see end, it's going to refer back to, in this case, 16, because we changed it to 16. Let's go back to, actually, let's keep it at 16. All right. Then I asked students how to lay down the third track. One will just say, keep going. Exactly. And if students, and we'll pause saying, okay, for some students, you might want us to do a recap, which we're going to do. We're going to go right back to the top, right after we write the next few lines of code. But someone tell me how to do it. I'll say, well, just type in sound again. All right. And then what do I put next? Well, let's put in a different sound. And maybe I'll try one of these other sounds. Like, could it be the bongos? Or maybe the synth. That might be interesting. Let's try that. I'm not sure if it's going to work musically, but we'll see. And I'll tell the students, well, I actually want to place this on track 3. So what do I do next? And they'll say, well, someone says track equals 3. I want this to start on 5 and end on 16. What do I need to do next? And someone might tell me, well, now type in start. I'm like, well, actually, what if I just typed in fitMedia, sound, track, start, and end, and hit the run button? And again, I'll sort of scroll down. So what happened? Well, same thing that happened last time. Zoom out a little bit so we can see all the code. Just like last time when we had end, we didn't update end and everything ended on 16. For track 2 and 3, we just updated start to 5. And then later on, when we put in our third track, we said we just updated sound and track. We didn't need to update start. And we didn't need to update end because we wanted the third track to start on 5 and end on 16. So if we just say fitMedia, sound, track, start, end, then it'll refer to the updated values for sound, track, start, and end. So sound equals this baseline, track now equals 3, start still equals 5 because we didn't update start, and end still equals 16 because we didn't update end. That's it. And now we hit play. Okay, now we have 3 different sounds coming together. All right. So now we encourage students to get really creative and give them a chance to do that. Start to get some questions. The questions that will come in at this point, you'll have some questions which are just more like, all right, well, how do I put in effects? I'll say, we're going to get to that in a minute. Someone will say well, what if I want to change the tempo? If you want to change the tempo, you'll notice this other thing called set tempo. Just like fitMedia, it's just a built-in function. It has one parameter, one type of value that it needs. That's what we call the beat per minute, or BPM. Everyone say BPM, and they'll repeat after me, BPM. BPM simply means the number of beats played per minute. 120 is roughly the pace of a heartbeat. Every second there are 2 beats, or 120 beats per minute. And if I want to slow this down, let's say I want to break all the way down to 90, I could change that value to 90, and I could hit play. You notice it's way slower. You can go all the way down to 45. You'll notice it's even. There it goes. Now it's just like some sort of dream sequence. Super slow. At this point, students also may ask me whether you can have different tempos, different tracks. Within EarSketch, you can't do that, but in professional music production software or digital audio workstations or DAWs, same terminology, you would be able to change the tempo on different tracks. That is just something you can't do in EarSketch in particular. Okay, so at this point, some students just start to go really, get creative. They might start to explore the built-in curriculum here in EarSketch. So again, similar to the first lesson in EarSketch with just fitMedia on one track, we want to go back to the slides and reestablish that low floor, because at this point, some students may have had some challenges with just the typing the code for the first time. So we're going to say okay, we're going to do a recap for everyone. So similar to what we did before, we're going to show you some sample code that you could use. And it could be a way just to double check your code. It could be a way of, getting some inspiration with other sounds. Or if you're having some challenges and your code just got really messy, maybe you just want to copy and paste this code into a new script so you have an example. that you can start to remix. Okay, so let's go into the slides. As we do this, we're also going to cover the concepts again, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Go to breakbeatco.de/1b. That will take you to this doc, and again, you can see at the top of the doc, breakbeatco.de/1b. This is a Google Doc that you don't need to log into. Anyone can access it without a Google ID. And you will be able to copy this code. And in fact, it might be really useful for everyone to do this because there's actually some good stuff in here that we're going to show later. So we just say, again, on a Chromebook or a Windows device, Control-A, Control-C on a Mac, Command-A to select all, Command-C to copy it. We'll go back into EarSketch. Now, if they already have a script open, they could just click the plus button right here, add a new script like that. Or if they don't have anything open, it'll look like this. They click here to create a new script. We'll call this example 1B date and then stage name. And same as last time, we'll just delete the code that's already there and paste in the code from the example and hit the run button. I'll zoom out so we can see everything in one place. Now I'll go back to the slide so we can walk through the concepts and the code line by line. The Python interpreter will read and execute each line of code line by line from top to bottom, like this. It first creates this table in memory where you have the variable name in one column and the value in another. We don't see this. It happens on the computer in Georgia somewhere. And on the first line, it just reads the variables. And just like last time, it reads the line by line. Whenever it sees a new variable name sound followed by an equal sign, then it creates that in memory and assigns the sound name to it. Same thing for track. You can see track equals 1. So we have track as the variable name created in memory. 1 is the value. Start as the variable name. 1 is the value. End is the variable name. 20 is the value. And on the next line of code, you see fitMedia. Another way to think about this conceptually is that we've written fitMedia in parentheses, sound, comma, track, comma, start, comma, end. And the Python interpreter says, okay, what you're telling me is basically to replace the words, the variable names, sound, track, start, and end, with the actual values. In this case, this sound with track equals 1, so track is replaced by 1. The word start, the name start is replaced by 1, and end is replaced by 20. That's what's happening in the background. And actually, if you just wanted to type in fitMedia, put in the sound directly in there in the parentheses with a comma followed by whatever track number, in this case 1, followed by a comma, 1, followed by a comma, and 20, it would do the same exact thing. So you don't actually need to use the variables in this case. You could actually just hard code these values. We use variables when we teach because we want to teach that concept because it's a really important one to learn. But again, it does that, and that's when we see, because what we're showing you is actually how this works in real time, because it's reading and executing each line of code. It's happening very quickly. So we're kind of slowing this down into super slow-mo, so we can see in that millisecond what's actually happening. It places that first track, and it continues to read the code, and now it goes to line 11, where it sees the sound equals this sound, aka undog pad 2. And it updates the sound variable in memory with this new value. Track is updated to 2. Start is updated to 5. And end, remember last time, we didn't update end, so it still equals 20. And so when we call the fitMedia function, again, in the background where we can't see it, Python interpreter says, okay, when you're actually telling me to use the fitMedia function and the current values of each of these variables, which are aka undog pad 2, 2, 5, and 20 for track start and end. And that's why we see on track 2, starting on measure 5, ending on 20, we see that sound played back to back. And it keeps going. And it says, okay, sound equals this updated house breakbeat sound. So house breakbeat 004. Track is now equal to 3. So the value of track is updated. We kept start and end the same. So now when we use the fitMedia function, it's going to use the current values of sound, track, start, and end. We've just updated sound and track. We didn't update start and end. That's why when it swaps out those values, it then says, okay, you're telling me play house breakbeat on track 3, starting on 5, ending on 20. And that's how it works top to bottom.